All right, so we're going to talk about parallelograms. Okay. What makes a parallelogram a parallelogram? You guys know? Anybody know? What? Yeah, you're actually pretty accurate. We got to be a little more specific than that, though. So we got some parallel lines happening. Which lines in the shape are parallel to each other? The opposite lines, okay, or opposite sides. So if I'm looking here, this is a parallelogram. It's telling me it's a parallelogram. So I know, because it's telling me it's a parallelogram, the opposite sides are parallel. Okay? And then we also have some theorems based off of a parallelogram. So if it's a parallelogram, opposite sides are congruent. Okay? So we're going to get into looking at and naming and looking at the rules of all different kinds of quadrilaterals. Parallelogram just ends up being the first one. Have you ever heard the statement, let me make sure I say it right. Every rectangle is every square is a rectangle, but not every rectangle is a square? You've heard that statement before? Okay, that's kind of what we're getting into, being able to tell them apart and know which rules go with what. But there's like 6 or 7 of them, okay, that we all got to keep straight. So it goes pretty smoothly as we're learning them individually, but I don't want you to get a false sense of confidence, okay, and like not do the practice. Make sure you're doing the practice so that when we get to mixing them all together, you are skilled at knowing what's what, knowing what rule goes with what, okay? So parallelograms, first rule is opposite sides are congruent, okay? So opposite sides are congruent. It also gives me a second theorem that opposite angles are congruent. Okay, so opposite sides are congruent, opposite angles are congruent to each other. We good so far? All right, go ahead and do number 1 at the bottom of that page together with your groups. So go ahead and do number 1 at the bottom of the page together with your groups. Ready, set, go. Okay, so what 2 things can I match up here?
49, 4x minus 37 equals 49.
Good, so 4x minus 37 and 49 I can match up. What else can I match up?
4x minus 3 equals y over 5.
Good. So the blue one we can't solve yet, right? Because we have x's and y's, but the red one we can. So I would add 37 to both sides. So 4x equals 86. Divide by 4. And I get 21 and a half, right? Okay. So that red, just to kind of take a step backward because I didn't say this explicitly, the red equation comes from setting up the 2 opposite angles, right? So opposite angles are congruent. That's why we set up that red equation. The blue equation is set up from the opposite sides. So now that I have that x value, I can go ahead and plug it in. So 4 times x is 21.5 minus 3 equals y over 5. So 4 times 21.5 is 86. Minus 3 more is 83. Equals y over 5. How do I deal with y over 5? Good. Multiply times 5 on both sides. And that's what, 415? 415? So y is 415, x is 21.5. Can I get a comfort level out of 4? How you feeling? All feeling good? Cool. Let's add some more rules. Next page. Okay, just a couple more rules. Okay, so let me pull over to the side here and show you a little picture. Okay, so if I have 2 parallel lines cut by a transversal, okay, and I'm looking at this angle right here and this angle right here. So this is going back to last semester, right? We have parallel lines cut by a transversal. What do I call the 2 angles that I put the little dots in? Consecutive interior angles. Good. And what is the relationship between consecutive interior angles? Good. They're supplementary. They equal 180, right? So that means if I am now imagining, go away. There we go. If I am imagining a parallelogram as parallel line, cut by a transversal, these two angles should be equal to 180, supplementary. Or flip it the other way. Parallel line, cut by a transversal. These two are still consecutive interior angles, which means they're supplementary. So what this means is, guys, since I have two sets of parallel lines like this, any consecutive angles in a parallelogram are supplementary. So we have two rules about angles. Opposite angles are congruent or equal, right? Consecutive angles are supplementary. So now that we're all awake, opposite angles are congruent or equal. I gave you the answer. Consecutive angles are supplementary. Okay, so those are our two angle rules for parallelograms. We have one more theorem, which tells me the diagonals bisect each other. So what does the word bisect mean again? Cuts it in half, right? So if I'm looking at this parallelogram right here, I know that QM is equal to MS because this is the bisector that cuts it in half. The same way that PM is congruent with MR because, again, this is the bisector, okay? So the diagonals bisect each other, so I know that those two pieces are congruent to each other, okay? So that's rule 3 and 4. You guys feeling okay? No. You might need me to explain this again? No. Okay. Try 4 through 11 together with your groups. And I will tell you, because we ran into this last block, this 68 right here is the entire angle. It got kind of confusing because we started doing it as half the angle and then it kind of got screwed up, which was good because we had the opportunity to see that and kind of work through it. But 68 is that entire angle. All right, go ahead and do 4 through 11 together with your groups. All right, PO. So PO is opposite of MN, so that's got to be 24, right? OQ is part of the diagonal, and Q must be the bisector, so that's got to be 14. NO is opposite MP, so that's 26. PQ is, again, part of the diagonal, so that's 20.7. Okay, so hopefully those were pretty straightforward, okay? Hopefully a couple of these angles are pretty straightforward. So PMN, that's this whole angle right here. So we don't know that one, but we know its partner over here is 68. So if angle N over there is 68, what does big angle M have to be? No, they're not opposites. If they were opposites, they'd be congruent. They're consecutive, right? So I would have to do 180 minus 68. 112. Good. So that's 112 degrees. NOP. So it's this bottom. So we could either say it's it's supplementary with N, or it's got to be congruent with M. So that one also has to be 112. OPM is the last big angle. It's opposite of N, so it's got to be 68. Okay, NMO. So I'm actually going to, it worked a lot better last block when I took all this stuff off of all this writing off of here. So we could really focus on this one because it's kind of hard to visualize. Okay, so let me switch colors here. So we are looking for NMO. That's this angle right there, right? NMO. That's that angle right there. So what we are not allowed to do, and this is one of the things that gets a little tricky, is to say, since this whole angle, so what was it? PMN is 112, that piece is 56. We're not allowed to do that because we don't know anything about the diagonal bisecting the angle. We just know the diagonals bisect each other. So I cannot say 56 there. Okay, so you got to be careful with that because that's a very, very common mistake. Okay, but going back to what we were thinking about earlier, if I look at parallel line,
Aren't they alternate interior?
good. Yep, we're getting there. I'm getting there. Parallel line, cut by a transversal. And I am looking at this angle right here. Is there any labeled angle that corresponds with? 59. And what do we call 59 in the angle I need? Good. Alternate interior angles. And we know alternate interior angles are what? Congruent, right? So this one has to be 59. So when you're looking at parallelograms, you have to use all the things you know. All 4 of those rules and that the opposite sides are parallel because sometimes you'll have to use those rules. Okay? To finish this off here, let's get a comfort level. See how you're feeling. So I have a bunch of lows. I can re-explain some stuff. Yeah, Lindsay, you have a question.
Okay, so for the last one, I did it so like, I took the triangle and the triangle one, like the second triangle.
This triangle right here?
Yeah, no, like the whole triangle.
This triangle right here?
No.
This triangle right here?
Yeah,
Okay.
and so then I like took like 68 plus 59 and then minus 180 and I got
68. What?
plus 59.
So you're assuming this one down here is 59, which you can't do, right? Yeah, because remember, just because this one's 59 doesn't mean this one's 59. Yeah. Thank you, though. That probably cleared it up for somebody else as well. What? This one?
Like for 59, the opposite angle is 53.
Oh, this one?
Yeah.
It'd be 1. Oh, wait. Yeah, because you'd have to do 112 minus 50 on it. Yeah, that'd be 53. Yeah. Yeah, because this would transfer over for the whole thing, so this would be 53. Yep. Okay, any other questions? Cool. Rest of the time is yours for homework.